The rain was cold and heavy. It fell on the broken buildings and muddy streets of the refugee zone. Ethan, a human man in his early 30s, pulled his coat tighter and walked carefully through the mess. His boots splashed in puddles filled with dark water. He had just finished his volunteer shift. Every week he came here to help, bringing food, fixing shelters, or giving medical supplies. But today felt different. The air was heavy. The silence was strange. Then he heard a sound. Not loud, just a soft, trembling voice behind him. "Please. Wait." Ethan turned around. At first he saw nothing but rain. Then a figure stepped out from behind a broken wall. A tall alien woman wearing a thin, soaked cloak. She was shaking, her head low, and behind her, two small children peeked out, holding onto her legs. The woman walked closer. Her feet were bare and her hands trembled. She pulled back her hood slowly. Ethan froze. She was beautiful, even under all the dirt and bruises. Her skin was pale blue, and her eyes, large, glowing slightly, were full of sadness. But not just sadness. There was something deeper. Desperation, fear, hope. She looked straight into Ethan's eyes and spoke in a quiet, broken voice. "My children are well behaved," she said. "I can be a good wife to you, human. Please, take us with you." Ethan was stunned. "What?" he asked, confused. The alien woman bowed her head quickly. "I'm not asking for love. I just want safety," she said. "I can cook. I can clean. I will never argue. My children will not trouble you, please. Just let us live somewhere safe." Ethan looked at the children. They were thin. Their clothes were torn. One of them had a scar on his forehead. The little girl clutched a broken toy and stared at him with wide, scared eyes. He didn't know what to say. "Where's their father?" Ethan asked gently. "Dead," the woman replied. "He fought in the war. I have nothing left." There was silence again, just the sound of rain hitting metal and stone. Ethan looked around. Nobody else was nearby. This part of the camp had been emptied days ago. The guards had stopped caring. Refugees were being moved or forgotten. He didn't know this woman. He didn't even know her species, but something in her voice and something in those begging eyes, it touched something deep inside him. "What's your name?" he finally asked. "Sarah," she said. "These are my children, Rael and Tima." The boy stepped forward a little and gave a small nod. The girl just clung tighter to her mother. Ethan ran a hand through his wet hair. He wasn't rich. He didn't even have a proper home, just a rented shelter on the edge of the city. But he had food. He had warmth. And maybe that was enough for now. "You're not safe here," he said quietly. Sarah looked up quickly, her eyes full of hope. "You'll help us?" "I'm not promising anything," he said. "But come with me, just for tonight. I'll get you food and a place to dry off." Tears filled her eyes. She nodded again and again. "Thank you, human. Thank you." He turned and started walking. She followed, holding her children close. People from broken tents watched them go, some whispering, some laughing. "Another fool taking in trash," someone muttered. But Ethan didn't stop. He kept walking through the rain, leading a stranger and her children away from the cold, the hunger, and the silence of a camp that no longer cared. And behind him, Sarah whispered a quiet prayer, hoping this strange human man might be different from the rest. She didn't know yet. But this one decision would change both of their lives forever. Ethan opened the door to his small shelter. It wasn't much, just 2 rooms, old furniture, and a heater that worked half the time. But it was warm, and it was safe. Sarah stepped inside with her 2 children. She stood near the door, unsure, like a ghost afraid to breathe too loudly. The kids looked around quietly, eyes wide. "You can sit," Ethan said gently. "You're not in the camp anymore." Sarah nodded and slowly walked over to the old couch. She sat carefully, almost like she was afraid of breaking it. The children stayed close to her, silent. Ethan handed her a towel and some dry clothes. They were human-sized, but it was better than wet rags. "Bathroom's over there," he said. "You can change. The kids, too." She whispered something in her language to the children. They nodded and followed her into the small bathroom. Ethan sighed and went to the kitchen. He had some leftover stew and warm bread. When they came out, dressed in dry clothes, they looked like new people. Sarah's hair was still wet, but she looked brighter. Not happy, but alive. He served them food and they ate like they hadn't eaten in days. Rael, the boy, ate in silence. The girl, Tima, smiled a little when she tasted the bread. After they finished, Ethan brought out some blankets and gave them the couch to sleep on. "You can stay for the night," he said. "Just tonight." Sarah stood and looked at him. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were burning with something deeper. "Then let me stay forever," she said. "Let me be your wife." Ethan blinked. "What?" "I meant what I said. I'm not weak. I can serve. I can be useful. I can be yours." Ethan stared at her. "You don't have to repay me." "I'm not repaying, I'm offering," she said. "In my culture, when a male saves a widow, he has the right to claim her as mate, but I give myself willingly." Ethan frowned. "That's not how humans do things." "Then do it your way," she said, her voice trembling. "But please, don't send us back." There was a knock at the door. Ethan opened it and there stood his neighbor, an alien man named Jor from the nearby zone. He saw Sarah and her children behind Ethan and burst into laughter. "You took her?" he said. "That broken widow? Everyone rejected her, she's cursed." Ethan stepped in front of Sarah. "They were out in the rain. And they belong there," Jor said. "That's what the camps are for." Sarah lowered her head, humiliated. But Ethan didn't say anything. He just closed the door. Later, at a food center, other refugees whispered behind his back, "That widow is nothing. She's just using the human. He's soft, stupid." But Sarah never complained. She cooked, cleaned, helped with repairs, and looked after his place as if it were her own. The children helped too. Quiet, respectful, thankful. And every night, before she lay down with her children, she asked one quiet question. "May I stay? Tomorrow too?" Ethan always gave the same answer. "We'll see." But each time he said it, his voice grew softer. He didn't understand what was happening to him. She wasn't just beautiful, she was strong. She had survived things no one should. And still, she kept her dignity. He watched her hold her son's hand when he had nightmares. He saw her fix his broken coat with scraps of cloth. And once, he caught her crying in silence, while watching a family across the street laugh together. She had lost everything. And yet, she still had something to give. People laughed at her offer, but Ethan was beginning to wonder. Maybe it wasn't a joke. Maybe this was real. And maybe, just maybe, he wasn't rescuing her. Maybe she was saving him. Ethan didn't mean for it to become permanent. But one night became 2, then 3. Then a week passed, and Sarah was still there, with her quiet strength, her gentle hands, and her children who never cried, never shouted, and always thanked him after every meal. He noticed small changes. His home was cleaner. The heater worked again. Sarah had somehow fixed the wiring. His tools were sharpened. His meals had spices he didn't even own. Alien spices, but delicious. And every morning when he woke up, she had already swept the floor, bathed the kids, and made food. Not because she had to, because she wanted to. Still, Ethan told himself, this is temporary, just until she gets on her feet. But deep down, that voice was getting quieter. The neighbors talked, whispered. Some looked at him with pity, others with disgust. She's using him. She's an alien widow. What does he see in her? No human should live like that. One evening, a human trader stopped by. He stared at Sarah while Ethan negotiated supplies. Then he leaned close and whispered, "You know you could trade her. Refugee wives are cheap out here." Ethan's face turned to stone. He didn't reply. He just told the man to leave. When he went inside, Sarah was on her knees, wiping the floor. Her children were asleep. "You fixed the light?" he asked, surprised. "I just adjusted the filament," she said softly. It was simple. He looked at her. Really looked. She was glowing faintly under the ceiling light. Her blue skin caught the warm color of the lamp. Her eyes had lost their panic, but not their sadness. "You don't owe me anything, Sarah," he said quietly. "I know," she said, "but I still choose to stay. Not because I must, but because it is safe here, and you are kind." She hesitated. "And maybe," she added, her voice lower now, "I want my children to grow up seeing what respect looks like. They've seen fear all their lives. I want them to see something else." That night, Ethan didn't sleep well. His mind was full of memories. He had been alone for a long time. After losing someone close, someone human, he had shut himself away. And now, this alien woman and her 2 children were in his space, changing everything without force, without asking, just by being there. Weeks passed. One morning, while taking Rail to get medicine, Ethan was stopped by a local enforcer. "Paperwork says those kids don't belong to you," the officer said. "You're not registered as a guardian. This could be seen as illegal adoption or trafficking." Ethan clenched his fists. "I'm not trafficking anyone," he growled. "I'm helping them survive." The enforcer shrugged. "You want to keep them safe? Then claim them properly." Ethan returned home with the decision heavy in his chest. Sarah noticed the look on his face. "What happened?" she asked. "They want me to claim you," he said. "Legally, as family, or they'll take the kids." Her eyes widened, not in fear, but something else. Something like hope. "Then claim us," she whispered, "if you still want to." He stared at her. She didn't beg this time, she didn't cry, she just waited. "I'm not doing it because I pity you," he finally said. "I'm doing it because I don't want this home without you anymore." She stepped closer. "And I don't want to return to a life where no one wanted me." That night, for the first time, they sat at the table like a real family. A human, an alien widow, 2 children, and something unspoken between them, growing stronger with each quiet smile and every passing day. The home wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and it was finally full. Peace didn't last. It never does. Not for people. Like Sarah, not when the past still has claws. It was a quiet evening. Ethan was helping Rail build a small model spaceship. Sarah was humming a song from her homeworld, folding clean clothes. Tima was coloring on the floor with chalk. For once, it felt like a normal life. Until the knock came. A loud, hard knock. 3 times. Ethan opened the door and immediately felt cold, even though the sun was still out. Outside stood a tall alien male. Broad shoulders, heavy armor, sharp eyes like black stone. A symbol on his chest marked him as a member of the Kartal bloodline, a ruthless warrior family. He wasn't alone. Behind him stood 2 more armored soldiers. One held a digital scroll. Sarah froze. Her eyes went wide with terror. She dropped the clothes. Her hands shook. The male stepped forward. "I am Velkar, bloodkin to Sarah's late mate," he said. "By ancient law, her children belong to the bloodline. We are here to collect them." Ethan's voice was firm. "They're not objects." Velkar didn't blink. "They are heirs. They carry Kartal blood. And this female, she had no right to run." Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling. "You left us to die. You sold our house. You claimed my husband's weapons and cast me out." Velkar smirked. "You were weak, a widow with nothing to offer. But your children, they are still valuable." He looked at Ethan with disgust. "And this? A human? You let her crawl into your house? Shameful." Ethan stepped between Velkar and the children. "You're not taking them." Velkar raised the scroll. By law, unless you challenge the claim in trial, she and the children must return. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Then I challenge it, Sarah gasped. Ethan, no, but he didn't back down. What do I have to do? Velkar smiled cruelly. You'll die, human, that's what you'll do. And with that, the soldiers turned and left, promising they'd return at dawn to collect the challenger. That night, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Ethan sat alone on the porch. Sarah stood behind him, wrapped in a blanket, her face full of worry. You don't understand their trials, she whispered. They're not fair. They're designed to kill outsiders. Ethan didn't look at her. Then they picked the wrong human. She sat beside him. Why are you doing this? He finally looked at her. I thought I was helping you, but it's not just that anymore. You're not a project, you're not a guest, you're my family now. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. Even if I bring war to your door? I don't care, he said. You're worth fighting for. She reached out and held his hand tightly. No one ever said that to me before, she whispered. At dawn, the trial began. It wasn't held in a courtroom. It wasn't civil. It was ancient, brutal tradition. A circle of aliens stood in the sand, outside the town. Velkar wore armor made of bone and steel. Ethan wore only his coat. Step forward, Velkar said. And die with pride, at least. But Ethan didn't flinch. The rules were simple. Survive 3 trials. One of pain, one of strength, one of truth. Velkar drew a curved blade and stepped into the circle. Ethan took a deep breath. He wasn't a soldier, but he was something more dangerous. A human with purpose. Back at the house, Sarah held her children close. They didn't understand why their new father figure had to bleed for them, but she knew. She knew this was no longer about survival. This was about belonging. And Ethan, this strange, stubborn human, was about to prove that blood didn't decide family. Choice did. The sun hung low in the orange sky, casting long shadows across the open circle of dust and stone. A crowd had gathered. Aliens from nearby zones, human settlers and refugees, all drawn by the strange sight. A human man, unarmored, untrained, facing one of the fiercest warriors of the Kartal bloodline. Ethan stood still, his fists clenched. Across from him, Velkar grinned, his blade gleaming. The trial had begun. This wasn't just a fight, it was the trial of union, an ancient law among Sarah's people. If a widow took a new mate, and the former bloodline objected, the new partner had to prove his worth. The first test was pain. Without armor, Ethan had to endure the lash of memory, strips of living vine that wrapped his arms and legs and sent surges of venom into his nerves. Velkar watched with amusement as the vines writhed and bit. Ethan's muscles locked. His jaw clenched. Fire raced through his veins, but he didn't scream. He thought of Rael, of Tima, of Sarah waiting in the crowd with wide, terrified eyes, and he stayed on his feet. The judge, a pale elder with 6 glowing eyes, nodded. Pain trial. Passed. Velkar stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. Let's see if your bones are stronger than your pride, human. The second test was strength. No weapons, just bare hands. The challenger had to lift a ceremonial stone and carry it across a battlefield, without falling and without help. The stone weighed more than Ethan expected. Nearly his whole body shook as he hoisted it. He took one step, then another. Velkar smirked. You'll drop it before the 3rd step. But Ethan didn't. He walked slowly, sweating, heart pounding, feet digging into the sand. 10 steps. 15. The crowd began to murmur. 20 steps. And he dropped the stone into the marked circle. He collapsed to his knees, gasping. The elder raised a hand. Strength trial. Passed. The 3rd test was truth. Velkar stepped aside. The elder approached Ethan and placed a strange orb over his heart. The alien voice echoed across the circle. Speak only truth. If your words lie, the orb will burn your soul. Ethan stood. The elder asked the question slowly. Why do you claim this widow and her children? The crowd waited. Sarah held her breath, and Ethan spoke. Not loudly, not proudly, just honestly. I don't claim them because I saved them, he said. I claim them because they saved me. The orb glowed gold, pure. I was alone, he continued, lost. But Sarah showed me that love doesn't have to come from your own species. Her children reminded me how to feel again. They are not my burden. They are my family. The orb shone even brighter, blinding. The elder turned to the crowd. Truth trial passed. The judgment was complete. Ethan had succeeded. He had done what few humans had even attempted. He had won the right to bond with a warrior widow of a powerful alien clan. But Velkar wasn't finished. He stepped forward, snarling. No human will take what belongs to Kartal. With a roar, he lunged at Ethan, sword drawn. The crowd gasped. Ethan ducked, and suddenly, Sarah was in front of him. She moved like lightning, grabbing Velkar's arm with both hands. Her eyes glowed white. Enough, she said. Her voice was like thunder. I am not a thing to be owned. I am not weak, and I do not belong to you. Velkar hesitated. For the first time, he looked unsure. If you strike him again, she said coldly, you will face me. Velkar looked into her glowing eyes. Then he turned, furious, and stormed away with his guards. After it was over, Ethan sat on a rock, still trembling. Sarah knelt beside him, her hand on his chest. You didn't have to do this, she whispered. No, he said. But I wanted to. You're hurt. I've been hurt before. She smiled. A real one this time. I've never seen anyone fight for me like that. He looked at her, tired but smiling too. You're worth fighting for. And this time, when she kissed him softly, honestly, it wasn't out of gratitude, it was out of love. 3 days had passed since the trial. Ethan's wounds were healing slowly. His ribs still hurt when he laughed, and the cut above his eye was turning a deep purple. But none of that mattered, because Sarah had kissed him. Not out of fear, not out of duty, but because she wanted to, and that changed everything. The town had gone quiet. The trial of union had drawn attention, more than Ethan expected. Now people whispered when they saw him in the market, some with respect, some with fear, some with hate. Did you hear? One alien muttered. The human won the trial. No outsider should ever be allowed to bond with a bloodline widow. Another spat. But there were other voices too. He didn't back down. He could have left her, but he stayed. Maybe humans aren't as soft as we thought. Inside their little home, Sarah stood at the sink cleaning herbs. The light caught her skin just right, and Ethan thought she looked like something out of a dream. She turned, catching him staring. You still hurt? Only when I move, he joked. Then stay still, she said, walking over. And let me help. She placed her hand gently on his chest over the healing bruises. A soft light glowed from her palm, alien energy, used only between bonded mates. He winced. Still not used to the whole glowing hand thing. She smiled softly. You'll get used to it if you still want this. Ethan's face grew serious. I want this, he said. But not because I passed some trial. Not because of tradition. I want you because I choose you. Her eyes softened, but then for a brief moment, something flickered in them. Doubt. What is it? He asked gently. I believe you, she whispered. But others won't. Later that night, a message came. A summons from the High Table of Elders, leaders from 5 different alien clans who had watched the trial in silence. Now they demanded Ethan appear before them. Sarah's hands shook when she read it. They don't trust the result, she said. They think you manipulated the law, that I pressured you. Ethan stood tall. Then I'll speak to them. I have nothing to hide. They will ask questions about love, about your past, about... I'll tell them the truth, he said. Same as I told you. The next day, in a silver dome carved into the cliffs, Ethan stood before a semicircle of alien elders. Sarah was by his side, her hand trembling in his. The lead elder, a being with glowing skin like molten rock, spoke first. You risked your life for her, but we must know. Was it real? Or was it weakness disguised as honor? Ethan didn't blink. I fought for her because she deserves to be chosen. Even though she is not your kind, she is more than my kind. She's better than most. I've met, another elder hissed. What do you see in her that would make you stand against warriors' laws and culture? Ethan turned to Sarah. I see someone who didn't give up even when her whole world collapsed. I see a mother who would starve before letting her children go hungry. I see a woman who has been denied respect and still offers kindness. He stepped forward. I didn't come here to take her. I came to stand with her. She is not my prize. She is my partner. The room fell silent. Then the lead elder raised a crystal, glowing faintly. If you truly wish to make this vow, he said, speak her name aloud, and she must speak yours. Ethan looked into her eyes. Sarah. She stepped closer, tears in her eyes. Ethan. The crystal flashed blinding white. The bond was sealed, not by culture, not by blood, but by choice. That night, back at their home, Sarah lit a small fire. Ethan sat across from her. She brought a simple necklace, braided with stone, metal, and alien threads. I made this, she said softly. In my world, when a woman chooses her mate, she gifts him this. If he accepts it, he belongs to her forever. He reached out slowly and took it. I belong to you, he said. And then she whispered, then I vow, as long as I breathe, you will never be alone again. Rain fell again the night they became a family, not the cold, biting rain of sorrow, but a gentle kind that washed the dust away. Ethan stood outside their small home, watching the water roll off the roof. Behind him, laughter echoed, real laughter. Rael and Tima were chasing each other with small wooden toys, and Sarah was watching them from the doorway, her eyes soft and warm. It was the first time he'd seen her smile without sadness behind. The next morning, they began building something new. Ethan wasn't just protecting Sarah anymore. He was growing with her. They planted vegetables in the dusty garden. He taught the children human numbers and stories. Sarah taught them how to sing in her native tongue. The neighbors, once cold, had started to knock gently on the door, asking for help with tools, medicine, advice. And when they saw Sarah answer confidently, proudly, something began to shift. The woman they once called a burden was now a pillar, but peace has its price. 2 weeks later, a message arrived by drone, not from the bloodline, but from the Galactic Settlement Authority. It was an inspection order. A formal challenge had been filed against Ethan's bond. Some alien officials were not pleased that a human, especially a common one, had passed an ancient rite and claimed an alien widow and her heirs. Do not show fear, Sarah said, touching his cheek. We've faced worse. I'm not. Afraid for me? Ethan replied. I'm afraid they'll try to rip us apart. The inspection day arrived. A sleek black shuttle landed in the market square. From it stepped 3 GSA agents, tall, pale, with emotionless faces and glowing yellow eyes. One of them scanned Ethan from head to toe. You are the human known as Ethan Hayes? I am. You claimed this alien widow and her children. On what legal or cultural basis? I claim them by choice, Ethan said clearly, and I passed her people's trial of union. The bond was challenged, another agent said. Your presence disrupts certain alliances. Powerful clans don't approve. Ethan crossed his arms. Powerful clans don't raise children, we do. The agent stared at him, unreadable. Then one of them turned to Sarah. Do you feel forced? No, she said. I chose him. Do your children approve? Rael stepped forward. He saved us. He's our dad. The agents remained, silent for several long seconds. Finally, they turned and left. The last one paused and looked back at Ethan. Your case will be reviewed. But not many would stand like you did. Then the shuttle lifted off. Word spread, a human had not only passed a warrior's trial, but stood against the GSA and remained standing. Respect began to grow, not from fear, but from quiet admiration. A few days later, Ethan was invited to speak at the local council gathering. He didn't want to go, he wasn't a hero, but Sarah convinced him. Tell them the truth, she said. That's all you've ever done. So he stood before a small crowd of aliens and humans. Most had once ignored him. Some had mocked him, but now they listened. I'm not from a powerful place, Ethan began. I didn't come here to win anything. I just saw a woman standing in the rain trying to protect her kids, and I made a choice. He looked at Sarah, who stood in the back, her eyes shining. I chose not to turn away. The crowd was silent. Then someone clapped, and another. And then the hall filled with sound, not loud, not wild, but real. Life moved on. Ethan and Sarah didn't become legends. They didn't live in castles or fly gold-plated ships. They simply lived. Together, they repaired their home. The garden grew. The children started school. Sarah began teaching refugee women how to survive, how to speak human languages, how to find work. Ethan helped build homes for those still living in old tents. They became something no one expected. A symbol, not of rebellion, not of conquest, but of hope. One evening, as the suns dipped below the cliffs, Sarah sat with Ethan under the stars. You know, she said quietly, when I stood in the rain and offered myself to you, I thought I was finished. Ethan turned to her. You weren't. No, she said. I wasn't. Because you saw something in me I couldn't see in myself. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I thought I had nothing left to offer. Ethan wrapped his arm around her. You gave me more than anyone else ever has. They sat in silence watching the stars. Then Rael's voice called from inside. Mom, Dad, Tima ate all the cookies. Ethan chuckled. Sarah smiled. Let's go before there's a war, she said. He stood and held out his hand. She took it, and together, they walked back inside, not as a rescued woman and a lonely man, but as partners, as family, as proof that love doesn't follow laws or bloodlines or species. Sometimes love begins with a whisper in the rain. My children are well behaved. I can be a good wife to you, human. And ends with something much stronger, a life that was once broken, now whole again.